10 most notorious gangsters in history, mafia bosses and crime lords. Al Capone. Al Capone, nicknamed Scarface, was an infamous American gangster and leader of the Chicago outfit during the Prohibition era. Born in Brooklyn, New York on January 17, 1899, Capone came from a respectable Italian-American family. Although a promising student, he was expelled at 14 and introduced to organized crime through his mentor, John Notorious. Capone rose to power in Chicago, running lucrative bootlegging, gambling, and prostitution operations. His empire made him a millionaire, but also gained national notoriety after the St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929. In 1931, Capone was convicted of tax evasion and sentenced to 11 years in prison. He served time at Alcatraz, where his health deteriorated due to syphilis. After his release, he lived in seclusion at his Florida estate until his death on January 25, 1947, at age 48. Capone remains one of history's most notorious crime figures. Sam Giancana. Sam Giancana, born June 15, 1908 in Chicago, was a powerful mob boss who rose through the ranks of the Chicago Mafia. Starting as a driver for Al Capone, Giancana eventually controlled illegal gambling, narcotics, and other criminal enterprises. Known for his ties to politicians, including the Kennedys, Giancana was a key figure in Chicago's underworld during the mid-20th century. His influence extended through connections with Frank Sinatra and high-profile affairs, including those with Phyllis McGuire and Judith Campbell Exner, who was linked to President John F. Kennedy. Giancana also allegedly helped rig the 1960 presidential election in Kennedy's favor. In the 1960s, he became involved in a CIA plot to assassinate Fidel Castro. After serving prison time for refusing to testify in 1965, Giancana was murdered on June 19, 1975, before he could testify in a Senate investigation. His death remains unsolved and is frequently portrayed in films. Benjamin Bugsy Siegel. Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, born February 28, 1906 in Brooklyn, New York, was a notorious gangster who built a criminal empire through bootlegging, gambling, and contract killings. Raised in a crime-ridden neighborhood, Siegel partnered with Meyer Lansky to form the Bugs Meyer Gang, infamous for running Murder, Inc., a group of hitmen. In the 1930s, Siegel moved to California, expanding his rackets while mingling with Hollywood elites. By 1945, he relocated to Las Vegas with his girlfriend, Virginia Hill, where he envisioned a gambling oasis. Siegel oversaw the construction of the Flamingo Hotel and Casino, which became a symbol of Las Vegas glamour. However, soaring costs and allegations of mismanagement angered his mob associates. On June 20, 1947, Siegel was killed in a mob-ordered hit in Beverly Hills, marking the end of his tumultuous life. He left behind 2 daughters and a legacy tied to Las Vegas's rise. Meyer Lansky. Meyer Lansky, born in 1902 in Belarus, was a key figure in the criminal underworld, often called the mob's accountant. After immigrating to the U.S. as a child, he formed alliances with gangsters like Charles "Lucky" Luciano and Benjamin Bugsy Siegel, co-founding the National Crime Syndicate in 1929. Lansky's financial expertise helped build a global gambling empire, and he pioneered money laundering techniques. During World War II, Lansky assisted the U.S. government by providing intelligence and combating Nazi sympathizers. After the war, he played a significant role in developing Las Vegas and controlled casinos in Cuba until the 1959 revolution. Although involved in numerous criminal activities, Lansky avoided prosecution until 1970 when he fled to Israel. After being acquitted in court, he retired to Miami, where he died of lung cancer in 1983. Lucky Luciano. Lucky Luciano, born Salvatore Lucania on November 24, 1897 in Sicily, was a pivotal figure in shaping modern organized crime in the U.S. After moving to New York in 1906, Luciano began his criminal career extorting classmates and, by the 1920s, rose to prominence during Prohibition. In 1931, Luciano orchestrated the murders of rival mob bosses, securing his position as leader of New York's 5 families. He established the Commission, a governing body for organized crime which included figures like Al Capone. However, in 1936, Luciano was convicted of extortion and sentenced to 50 years. Deported to Italy after World War II, Luciano lived under surveillance in Naples until his death from a heart attack in 1962. He was buried under his birth name in Queens, New York, Kray Twins. Ronnie and Reggie Kray, born in East London in 1933, were infamous gangsters who led the firm, a criminal enterprise active until their arrest in 1968. Known for murder, extortion, and arson, the twins gained celebrity status through media appearances and connections with public figures. Raised in a working-class family, they briefly pursued boxing and served in the army before being dishonorably discharged for violent behavior. Their empire included ties to political figures, blackmail, and collaborations with the American Mafia. Ronnie's 1966 murder of rival George Cornell marked their downfall. Detective Leonard Nipper Red overcame witness silence to arrest the Krays and their associates. Convicted in 1969, they were sentenced to life in prison. Ronnie, declared insane, died in 1995, while Reggie, released on compassionate grounds, died in 2000. John Gotti. John Gotti, known as the Teflon Don, was the notorious head of the Gambino crime family. Born in 1940 in the Bronx, New York, Gotti rose to power through ruthless tactics, including the murder of rival Paul Castellano in 1985. Known for his charisma, Gotti gained his nickname for evading multiple convictions. However, in 1992, he was convicted of murder and racketeering, largely due to testimony from his underboss, Sammy Gravano. Gotti was sentenced to life in prison, where he died of cancer in 2002. George Bugs Moran. George Bugs Moran led Chicago's North Side Gang during Prohibition. Born Adelard Cunin on August 21, 1893 in Minnesota, Moran clashed with Al Capone, culminating in the 1929 St. Valentine's Day Massacre. Though he escaped, the massacre weakened his gang. Moran later turned to smaller crimes but was eventually convicted of fraud and robbery. He died in 1957 while serving time in prison. Frank Costello. Frank Costello, born Francesco Castiglia on January 26, 1891 in Italy, was an influential Italian-American mobster who led the Luciano crime family, one of New York's 5 families. Known as the Prime Minister of the Underworld, he built a criminal empire centered on gambling and maintained a business-like approach to organized crime. In the 1940s and 1950s, Costello was at the peak of his power, gaining influence through ties with politicians and business leaders. However, his authority weakened after a 1957 assassination attempt by rival mobster Vincent Chin Gigante and legal troubles from Senate investigations into organized crime. By 1957, Costello retired, passing leadership to his underboss Vito Genovese. His life and career inspired characters in popular culture, including in The Godfather. Costello died of a heart attack on February 18, 1973, at the age of 82. Vito Genovese. Vito Genovese, born in 1897 in Ricegliano, Italy, was a notorious mobster and boss of the Genovese crime family. He immigrated to the U.S. in 1913 and began his criminal career at a young age, working for mobsters like Joe Masseria and Arnold Rothstein. Genovese was involved in illegal activities such as theft, gambling, and violence, and spent time in prison for firearms possession. In the 1920s, he became a key figure in the Luciano crime family before forming his own crime syndicate. Genovese was sentenced to 15 years in 1959, but continued to run his operations from jail. He died in 1969 at the U.S. Medical Center for Federal Prisoners. Throughout his career, he mentored Vincent the Chin Gigante to succeed him. Which gangster do you think had the most powerful criminal empire? Let us know your thoughts in the comments.